Lucy Letby was entrusted to protect some of the most vulnerable babies. In her hands, innocuous substances like air, milk, or medication like insulin would become lethal.
They told me that there would be a lot more deaths and that I'd been linked to somebody that was there for a lot of them.
She was very cool, calm, calculated, and a criminal-minded lady.
I remember saying the transport team are going to be here soon, almost thinking out loud. I was literally counting the minutes before they arrived. Staff nurse Letby said, "He's not leaving here alive, is he?"
Hello, Lucy, is it?
Yes.
Hello, my name is Chest, please. Can you step in 2 seconds?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
The smile's gone, and she's in handcuffs a few minutes later.
Not a problem.
Lucy Letby is now known as the most prolific child serial killer in British history. What made her murders especially gruesome? And how did she go from girl next door to baby killer? Welcome to Crime City. This is the full story of Lucy Letby, the killer who hid in plain sight.
She was unremarkable as a nurse. She had a normal friendship group, a family. She had a normal social life, everything you would expect somebody in their 20s to do. She was operating in plain sight because she was so normal.
This story begins with a rare set of triplets. On June 23, 2016, 2 babies collapsed within hours of each other at the Countess of Chester Hospital in Manchester. The babies were part of a rare set of triplets, not just because they were triplets, which in itself is rare, but because they were identicals who shared a placenta. The first baby, Baby O, had started screaming in pain. The doctors found him swollen all over. He had a peculiar rash on his belly. His skin was changing color and he was struggling to breathe. Baby O's parents were immediately called into the room. The doctors were not sure Baby O was going to make it, and they wanted his parents there with him.
On June 23rd, a doctor came onto the ward and said Baby O's stomach had swollen and he was needing help to breathe. So they had put a tube down his throat, and lots of medical staff were rushing around. I remember the nurse Lucy was there all the time. The staff seemed to be in a state of panic. I just sat outside the nursery. I couldn't bring myself to go closer.
O kept going into cardiac arrest. A doctor finally pulled Baby O's mom aside and told her things were not looking good. The doctor advised the mom that it might be best if Baby O didn't survive because there might be a lot of brain damage if he did, as his brain had gone too long without oxygen. After hours of trying to resuscitate O, the doctors gave up and pronounced the time of death. His parents were devastated, but the worst was yet to come. A few hours later, the doctors were called back to that unit. Only this time, O's brother, Baby P, was on the verge of dying. His symptoms were eerily similar to those of his brother O, who had just died. The doctors rushed to save Baby P, doing everything they could to make sure his parents left the hospital with 2 healthy babies. But unfortunately, despite all their efforts, Baby P passed away. The doctors knew something was not right. It was very unusual that 2 healthy babies would collapse suddenly within hours of each other, and it was even more unusual that they were brothers. A post-mortem done on O and P would reveal that air had been injected into their stomachs and bloodstream. But what sent chills down the doctor's bones was the state of Baby O's liver. The post-mortem had revealed Baby O had severe liver injuries akin to babies involved in road traffic accidents. Except these babies had not been in an accident, and minutes before their collapse, they were healthy. It was apparent something sinister was going on, so the police were alerted. But that was just the tip of the iceberg. They would uncover a story that still sends shivers down everybody's spines. By the time the police were invited to this bizarre case of babies dying at an unusual rate at the Countess of Chester Hospital, the doctors already had their suspicions. O and P were not the first cases of sudden collapses in the neonatal ward of the Countess of Chester Hospital. The police would discover that several babies had collapsed between June 8, 2015 to June 23, 2016, and there was one nurse who was always on duty when the babies suddenly collapsed. That nurse was Lucy Letby. Lucy Letby is a 32-year-old nurse who started working as a nurse at the Countess of Chester Hospital in 2012. The doctors who worked with her described her as confident and capable in a crisis, at least until June 2015.
Initially, there was a feeling of thank goodness Lucy was on, because she's really good in a crisis, she's really good at managing these things. But as time progressed, the thoughts started springing into our heads. Could she be doing something deliberately?
In June 2015, one doctor in particular had a sneaking suspicion something was off when Baby A collapsed. Baby A was born prematurely and delivered by cesarean at 31 weeks. He was admitted to the neonatal unit's intensive care room. The little baby was considered stable and breathing on his own without oxygen support. He was expected to make a full recovery and hopefully go home with his parents when on June 8th, his condition suddenly took a turn for the worse. What the police found interesting was that Baby A collapsed roughly an hour after Lucy Letby began her shift and took over Baby A's care from the previous nurse. At 7:30 p.m., Lucy Letby's shift began. By 8:26 p.m., Lucy called doctors to Baby A's incubator, and the doctors found that he was deteriorating rapidly. And despite all attempts to resuscitate him, Baby A passed away at 8:58 p.m. Lucy Letby also tried to attack Baby A's sister, Baby B. But by some miraculous move, Baby B survived. But there was one thing the doctors couldn't shake about Baby A. While the doctors were trying to keep Baby A alive, Dr. Ravi Jayaram noted an unusual skin rash that was pink and bluish, and seemed to disappear and reappear during the resuscitation. While he noted this rash, it would be months before he investigated the reason for the rash, and his sneaky suspicion would turn into the stuff of nightmares. On June 14, 2015, 6 days after Lucy Letby attacked Baby A and Baby B, she came for Baby C. Baby C was also born prematurely in early June 2015, but despite being born premature, his doctors noted he was stable and in good condition. But around 11:05 p.m. on the night of June 13th, Baby C suddenly stopped breathing. The doctors tried their best to revive him, but he was pronounced dead at 5:58 a.m. on June 14th. Baby C's collapse was particularly unusual. He was very healthy minutes before his collapse, and the doctors could not find any medical reason why he collapsed. Babies like this should not collapse. You get prior warning that something is amiss. They don't go from being stable into a cardiorespiratory situation within minutes. They rarely collapse in this way, but they are usually responsive to resuscitation, and he was not. A post-mortem done on Baby C revealed that Lucy Letby had injected air into Baby C's stomach, causing him to collapse. Baby E, like all the other babies, was a premature twin born in July 2015. When Baby E was born, he wasn't doing well, and he initially required help breathing. But after days of close monitoring by the doctors, Baby E improved greatly. Unfortunately, Lucy had already set her sights on Baby E, and his once improved condition would later take a turn for the worse. Dr. Ravi Jayaram again noticed the same unusual rash on Baby E, and he was deeply concerned. Dr. Ravi Jayaram remembered that he had seen this particular rash on other babies who had collapsed, and he had a gnawing feeling something sinister was going on. It was highly unusual that babies that were dying were spotting this strange rash, so he got to work investigating the rash. What he found out would set in motion a chilling set of events. Dr. Jayaram discovered that the rash was a consequence of an air embolism. That discovery chilled Dr. Jayaram to his bones.
I remember sitting on my sofa at home with the iPad, and I remember reading that description and the physical chill that went down my spine because it fitted with what we were seeing.
An air embolism was not something premature babies get unless given to them on purpose. Dr. Jayaram had a sinking suspicion that someone on that ward was doing something to the babies, but he didn't know who. So Dr. Jayaram and another doctor got to work trying to figure out who was harming the babies. By October 2015, the doctors had made an association between Lucy Letby and the babies dying. At first, they didn't want to believe it, but as more babies continued to die on her shift, it was getting harder to ignore that Lucy was the one harming the babies. Dr. Ravi Jayaram and other doctors reported to hospital management immediately. They connected the death of the babies to Lucy Letby, but nothing was done.
We paediatricians were certainly concerned that someone, and suspicions fell on Lucy Letby, could have been harming and perhaps killing patients on the unit. If they just listened to us hospital paediatricians, I think the police would have been called in a lot earlier.
But unfortunately, the hospital management ignored the doctor's suspicion, and Baby I couldn't be saved from Lucy. After succeeding in her attack on Baby I, Lucy then set her cap for Baby K. Baby K was one of the smallest babies in the neonatal unit. She was born at 25 weeks, but she was in good condition. But just to be safe, the doctors decided to transfer her to a more specialist hospital an hour after she was born. While they were waiting for transport, Baby K's nurse left her with Lucy Letby to go do something quickly. But within that window, in the early hours of February 17th, Lucy would make her 5th attempt at killing another baby.
I was sitting at the desk just outside the room writing notes, and the nurse looking after the baby said she was popping to the delivery suite to go and talk to the parents, and she said, "I've left Lucy in there babysitting." Part of me was saying, you better go in and just check everything's okay, because you know what's happened before when Lucy's been on duty.
Dr. Ravi Jayaram walked into a situation that sent shockwaves through his body.
As I walked towards the incubator, I could see on the monitors that the oxygen saturations, which is basically the baby's oxygen levels, were dropping. And they dropped to a level that Ordinarily, number one, the alarms would have been going off. But number two, the nurse would have called for help.
But to Dr. Jairam's surprise, Lucy was just standing there watching baby K as her oxygen levels plummeted to dangerously low levels. When Dr. Jairam moved closer to the incubator, he saw something else rather disturbing.
Now, tubes become dislodged, but this was a 25-week gestation baby who wasn't kicking around, who wasn't vigorous. The only possibility was that that tube had to have been dislodged deliberately.
Dr. Jayarma got to work and was able to save baby K's life, but 3 days later, baby K would pass away. At this point, several doctors on staff were sure Lucy was doing something to harm the babies. By April 2016, 2 more babies had collapsed and nearly died, but the hospital management insisted there was no evidence Lucy Letby was causing any harm. To appease to the doctors, Lucy was moved to the day shift. The doctors noticed 2 things. Babies had stopped collapsing during the night shift, but unfortunately, 2 more babies collapsed during the day shift. By June 2016, the doctors had met with the hospital board, which included then medical director Ian Harvey and chief executive Tony Chambers, to raise their concerns. But again, their concerns were dismissed.
The very first thing that Tony Chambers, the chief executive, said to us, he cogitated for a few seconds and he said, "Well, I can see how that might be a very convenient explanation for things."
After the death of baby O, while they were waiting for transport to come and get him, baby P started collapsing, and another nurse in the unit was very worried. But then she heard a statement from Lucy Letby that shocked her to her marrow.
I remember saying the transport team are going to be here soon, almost thinking out loud. I was literally counting the minutes before they arrived. Staff nurse Letby said, "He's not leaving here alive, is he?"
At this point, the doctors refused to continue to work with Lucy Letby, and management was forced to transfer her to an office job, and the babies stopped collapsing.
It was the same staff doing the same job, and there were no sudden collapses.
After the management noticed this, the doctors were finally permitted to speak to the police, and within minutes of the police listening to the doctors, they knew something was gravely wrong. They immediately launched an investigation that would last months and would unearth Lucy Letby's evil deeds. Investigators searched Lucy Letby's home in Chester, as well as her parents' home in Hereford. In her bedroom, the police found what they referred to as Lucy's killing trophies. They found medical documents of some of the babies she attacked, a chilling diary, post-it notes, and pictures of cards that she'd written to the parents of the babies she murdered. One particular post-it note that was found at Lucy Letby's home during the raid was especially chilling. There, Lucy wrote words like, "I am evil, I did this, and I did this. I killed them on purpose because I am not good enough." She also wrote, "There are no words. I am an awful person. I pay every day for that, and no one will ever know what happened and why. I'm a failure." Finally, in July 2018, Lucy Letby was arrested.
Oh, Lucy, is it? Yeah. Hello, my name is Chester, please. Can you step in 2 seconds?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
The smile's gone, and she's in handcuffs a few minutes later.
No problem.
Lucy Letby was charged with killing 7 babies and attempting to kill 10 others between 2015 and 2016, and her trial began in October 2022 at Manchester Crown Court in northwest England, though Lucy denied ever doing anything wrong, and her defense team argued that the hospital's negligence, not Lucy, killed those babies. The jury found her guilty of murdering 7 babies, and she was sentenced to a mandatory life sentence on Monday, August 21st, 2023, the 4th woman to get a life sentence in British history. Hey, thanks for watching. What do you think about this case? Do you think the babies could have been saved sooner if the hospital management listened to the doctors? Write us a comment and remember to like and subscribe. See you next time.